Wednesdays, of course, is presented by the Reneer Institute in conjunction with the Block Alumni Association, the Block MBA Speaker Series, Block Executive MBA, and today a special group of Financial Advisory Board. We are, of course, featuring the Entrepreneur Hall of Fame Speaker Series, and the point of First Wednesdays is to bring together UMKC students with people from the Kansas City community. So afterwards, we're going to have food and beverages out in the Hall of Fame here. I would like to challenge all the students here to get your food and go meet someone new. We've got a lot of community members here today. We've got a lot of other students that you can get to meet. And I would just challenge each of you to try and find someone new to meet with today. Just an announcement, we've got our Summer Scholars program this summer. We are currently accepting applications. This is a 3-credit-hour summer course that happens over the course of 2 weeks. Super intensive, taught by myself and Dr. Tony Mendez. Really cool course, if I do say so myself. But please, if you know anybody that would be interested, if you yourself are interested, please talk to me afterwards. Check out our website. All the incoming freshmen and freshmen going into their sophomore year, or if you are below that sophomore credit hour limit, you will receive a scholarship to pay for this course. So get 3 credit hours done in 2 weeks. You get to hang out with me for 2 weeks, which is always fantastic. And you get to do it for free. Normally people charge for that. So anyway, let someone know if you know of anyone that would be interested. Next, we've got a special guest. Our UMKC alumni are always doing exciting things. Some of you were here for the event just before this. Mike Wilson is the CEO and co-founder of Nile Watches. He was here to do a product release on a new set of products they're bringing out here. Mike is an alumnus of UMKC. He is also part of our mentor program for the E-Scholars. And I'd like to bring him up here just to talk about his journey from UMKC to luxury brand creator.
Thank you very much. I appreciate that. Nice to see a full crowd at this here tonight. You know, it's really nice to see where UMKC has gone and has become. I was a 2005 KU graduate and a 2006 MBA UMKC graduate. And so what was interesting and what I have a great appreciation about UMKC, other than that they have an alumni that's myself and my business partner Mark Rennick, we're both UMKC alumni. What I really appreciate about UMKC is that I was a 2.9 GPA student in college. 19 ACT, by no means would you ever pin me to be a book smart guy. Looking for MBA programs, turned down by everybody. Frankly, I should have been turned down by UMKC, but they saw something different in me. And that was my entrepreneurial side, my entrepreneurial background. I think that was really what, to me, encompasses UMKC, is they're not your standard college at all. They find things in people and they help people discover things in themselves that you didn't elsewhere. I learned some things while at KU, but when I came to get my MBA here, one of the first things they did was give me a creativity test. And I scored off the charts on that creativity test in one of my classes and realized I actually had some value that was like quantifiable. And my mind existed elsewhere. I really realized I could be an entrepreneur. And so when I left UMKC, I worked in the work world for 4 years, and then I started my own web and mobile app company, and I sold it, and then I started Nile. We manufacture luxury timepieces and now luxury products. And so we do all that in America. And what I would say to really anybody that's here is our journey from starting Nile to UMKC grads, myself and Mark, to building it, to taking it to where it is today and opening our own store here this summer, is the classroom is really great. Your experiences you're going to have here, the things you're going to learn, those are going to be tangible. You're going to be able to see and experience and know that that came from your time at UMKC. But what I recommend everybody here to do is to connect with other people. Go experience things. There is a jackpot of entrepreneurs, business owners, people in this city. This is the city's school. Your best value for your life moving forward exists far beyond the books and more to where the food and the drinks are after this. It's the person that's sitting next to you that you strike up a conversation with them that actually happens to be your business partner or your biggest deal that you land 3 years from now. And that's what I took out of UMKC, and I hope you all take, is go experience it. Go meet people, go to the event, talk to the professors, because you know what? When it comes time to when you need help, those are the people you're going to ask for. And for us, it's been a lot of the value is being able to connect with these people. And so it's great to see you all here. You know, I've got to admit, I feel like an OG because I went through the block school before all this stuff was here. And so you got world-class facilities. It's a world-class place. I'm very proud to be an alumni from here. And, you know, do the rest of us proud. Go out, experience the world, build some great companies, do some good work, make the rest of us proud.
Thanks, Mike. Once again, Mike is a mentor for our eScholars program. eScholars helps early stage ventures get off the ground. If you're interested, know someone that is interested, talk to Brian Boots in the back here. He's the director of our eScholar program. Mike, thanks again. At this point, I would like to invite Dr. Jeff Hornsby up here. He's the director of the Reneer Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation.
Thanks, Ben. Again, welcome. I want to add some thanks to Dr. Mock, Dr. Clark, and Dr. Hayes from the Finance Department and the Financial Management Association students that are here today to join us to hear our distinguished speaker. We're always glad when folks from the other areas of Block come and hear our speakers. Just a commercial, the next first Wednesday in April features Lamar Hunt Jr. To talk about his family's entrepreneurial journey, so make note of that, the first Wednesday in April. That'll be a really cool talk. If you like the Chiefs or any other sporting type event that their family's been involved in, they have a long history. It's my pleasure now to introduce our Dean, David Donnelly, to come up and introduce our speaker.
Good afternoon. Welcome to First Wednesdays. I'm Dave Donnelly, Dean in the Henry W. Block School of Management. It's really my pleasure every first Wednesday to be here and to welcome you to what's going to be truly an exciting presentation. We're very proud of First Wednesdays, and this is a great tribute to the entrepreneurship program and that. But the real pleasure of this is that it allows us throughout the semester to have inductees from our Hall of Fame who come and speak on their entrepreneurial journeys and how they become some of Kansas City's absolutely most innovative business leaders. If you haven't had a chance to view the Hall of Fame, you'll have a chance after the presentation. And hopefully you're going to take advantage of the networking reception and you'll be able to see the Hall of Fame at that time. We're very proud of it. The Entrepreneur Hall of Fame here at the Block School. And one of the things that we take very seriously is its tagline. And I think it really says it all. The Hall of Fame was created as a place to honor bold ideas and to inspire bright futures. And that's what it serves for us. It's a way of recognizing truly outstanding entrepreneurs from the Kansas City area. But equally important, it's an opportunity for our students to get inspired. Michael, what a great story and a great way of setting this off, talking about how you have this opportunity to go out and do something remarkable. Take advantage of the opportunities that you get through your education. The other thing that First Wednesdays does is it allows us to bring the Hall of Fame to life. This event, as I already mentioned, brings students, alumni, business and community leaders together to honor Kansas City's top entrepreneurs. The Reneer family was inducted in the inaugural 2014-15 class of UMKC's Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame. Vic and Helen Regnier launched a successful construction company in the late 40s. They were building homes, subdivisions, retail centers in what was then rural Johnson County. Their entrepreneurial success led to the philanthropic support of education and other activities in the greater Kansas City area. Today, Bob Reneer, President, Chairman, and CEO of Bank of Blue Valley, and a 1978 MBA graduate from UMKC, has continued both the tradition of entrepreneurship and philanthropic support. And we're pleased to have him join us this evening. Bob Reneer founded Bank of Blue Valley in 1989 in a double-wide mobile home at the intersection of 119th and Metcalf. And I remember that. I remember driving by going, well, that's interesting. At the time, there were 8 staff members on the payroll. Since then, Bank of Blue Valley has expanded to 5 locations throughout Johnson County. They employ over 60 officers and 200 employees within 4 operating divisions and has $630 million in total assets. Quite an accomplishment. Bob is a native Kansas Citian. He's a graduate of K-State at the undergraduate level and UMKC at the MBA level. He is former chairman of the Greater Kansas City Chamber of Commerce and is currently active on board of directors at the Civic Council of Greater Kansas City, Union Station, Kansas City, Kansas Venture Capital, Inc., Greater Kansas City Community Foundation, Johnson County Community College Foundation, and the University of Kansas Hospital Authority. He has received numerous honors, including Philanthropist of the Year, Kansas Citian of the Year, and received the Henry Block Human Relations Award. He is truly an icon in Kansas City and has done much to elevate the entire city in the direction that we're going. Bob and the entire Reneer family have invested heavily in UMKC. We have the Reneer Institute for Entrepreneurship and Innovation and the Reneer Venture Creation Combination due to just their generous support. In his Entrepreneurial Hall of Fame induction video, Bob said, "Bankers are supposed to be pessimistic because that's the nature of the game. But to be a really good entrepreneur banker, you have to have just a tinge of optimism in your outlook on life." To share more on that outlook, please help me in welcoming Bob Reneer.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, David and Jeff and Ben and to Leo, who's not here today. I was with Leo last night, and he said he was going to be in Jefferson City today, and I said, "Oh, I'm so sorry." But everybody has to do that occasionally. But it's an honor for me to have a connection with UMKC and with the Block School, and particularly with Henry Block. I don't know if any of you ever have the opportunity to spend any time with Henry, take up that opportunity, because he's a wonderful individual. He's not only incredibly smart, but he's just a really decent human being, and a guy that I have a tremendous respect for, and we all should be proud to have his name on our school. I'm going to talk today about, and I'm also would have to add that our family is incredibly proud of being one of the inaugural families in the Hall of Fame. I mean, it is a great honor for us, and I say that on behalf of my brother and sister who joined me in our efforts. I'm going to talk to you. I'm going to spend really most of my time talking about my dad. I mean, that was really a lot of it. I mean, he was the true entrepreneur. My story is still evolving, and I'm going to talk a little bit about myself and the bank. I'm going to also try to leave you with 10 things. I picked out 10 items that I think are important for you as you begin your entrepreneurial journey, and I'll also talk about 5 critical elements for a collective success of our communities. When you're successful, I want you to consider these 5 elements because they are important for the collective success of our community. So.
Loaded?
I'm gonna just keep on moving right through here. So you know, my dad. Oh, there it is. And we got a clicker.
I got you a clicker right here.
Good. Thank you.
Go.
Thanks. My dad was born in 1917. I mean, when you think about it, it's a really unique point in time. You know, 1917 in the early 20s, the world was good. I mean, the economy was moving. He grew up in his early years in experiencing a fairly good environment. Of course, September, October 1929, the Black Friday and the Depression started. And then he grew up. Those years from 12 to 20 were really tough years for him and his family. My grandfather his father was a carpenter, and his mother was a nurse. They lived over in Wyandotte County. They lost their home at the very beginning of the Depression. And then, you know, we kind of documented through some records that my grandmother kept, that they actually moved 14 times in the next 7 years, as much as anything to stay ahead of trying to pay their rent and also trying to find a cheaper place to live. So, but my dad was a very energetic guy, but you can see he wasn't a very good student. You know, he was a good guy, but he went to Kansas City, Kansas Community College. This is his transcript, and as you can see, wasn't particularly good. He didn't like chemistry. He failed it 3 times in 3 years. But he did real well in engineering drawing, so that probably was a portent for the future. This is the letter that the dean sent my grandmother in 1939 at the end of the second year, and then they gave him a third year to try to finish and graduate. And as you can see there, the dean offered to talk to her about Victor, and she took him up on that. She called him up, and he said to her, he's a really good young man. He just works too hard. I mean, he's got 2 jobs, and he's really not spending enough time on his schoolwork. So, that was his start. Oops. That's a picture of my mom and dad. As a young adult, he entered the war, enlisted in the Navy, and became a sonar instructor. He was a licensed electrician prior to that, and knew a lot about electricity, and so he was picked out to be a sonar instructor, and he taught young men going into the Navy about sonar, which was a new technology at that point in time. You know, my dad was not a big partier. He didn't go out with the guys on the weekends, so he spent a whole lot of time at the library. Well, that woman was the base librarian. And so he ended up getting very well acquainted with her, and they got married toward the end of the war and moved back to Kansas City. There's an interesting couple because, as you can see, my dad struggled in school and was a hard worker, but didn't have a lot of background in formal education. My mother was a Phi Beta Kappa graduate of Syracuse University, so they're kind of from opposite poles, but they were a great team. She ran the office, he ran the field. They did a great job. My grandmother lived with us and raised actually the 3 of us, and as the 2 of them actually ran the business. He entered the workforce in 1947 and began building houses. And this is a 1952 picture. My dad's the one that's kneeling over there in the check shirt on the far bottom left with the hat. He did relatively well early on, but he's a smart guy. And again, it's kind of like when everybody talking about pivoting. He made a decision early on. He said, I'm doing okay building houses, but I could make a whole lot more money. The guy that's really making the money is buying the land and developing the land and creating an additional profit in the development side of things. So he decided he'd get out of just the building business, so he would get into the development and the building business. And so he actually built his first subdivision was called Missiondale. And it's very close to a landmark near and dear to all of your hearts. Oklahoma Joe's at 47th and Mission Road. Everybody knows where that's at. If you just go north, and it's actually worth an extra 5 minutes to go there, and you'll see those 2 little side monuments there on the west side of Mission Road at 44th Terrace. And that was his first subdivision. There's about 40 or 50 homes in there, and article at the top left was from December of 1917. It's December 17th of 1950. And that announced the fact that he was one of 15 builders in the United States that was picked as one of the best post-World War II housing developments in the United States. So he was very proud of that. Also, it's interesting to note something he told me about many times. Right after this, in about 1951 or 52, he got invited to go to Nashville because there was a bunch of guys getting together and they were talking about this new hospitality concept. And he went there with a bunch of his friends and they looked at that and some of them went into it. He said, I'm doing well building houses. I'm just going to stick with that. And he turned it down. And he was offered the franchise for all of Kansas and half of Missouri for Holiday Inn. And he said that was one of the biggest mistakes he ever made in his life, but he moved on after that. So, it's interesting. My dad, and I actually never asked him this question, wished I had. For some reason, he had an affinity for Mission Road. I mean, this was on Mission Road. He went immediately from there to 58th and Mission Road and developed the Reinhardt Estates subdivision. And then he just marched down Mission Road. He built subdivisions and houses at 67th, 85th, 95th, 99th, 103rd, and 133rd, and always within 10 blocks east or west of Mission Road. But that was kind of his road, and he stuck to it. But somewhere in the mid 50s, he was having difficulty selling houses because people were saying, there's no place to shop. And so that was what really made him start thinking originally about getting into the commercial real estate business. That is actually, the picture of this actually in the Hall of Fame. That's my dad there at the left, and my mother Helen. I'm the one on the left, my sister Kathy in the center, and my brother Vic on the right. This was a family business. We all participated. This was the Parade of Homes. We all had a job. My brother blew up the balloons. My sister handed out the balloons, and I handed out the yardsticks. So we had a job, and we did it, and we knew how to do it. Moving on, this is kind of an interesting picture and it's a great old picture. That large building at the bottom there is the Ranch Mart Shopping Center, and that's 95th Street going kind of from bottom left to top right. The other from bottom right to top left is Mission Road. And you can see a tremendous amount of vacant ground. There's a big nursery on the other side of Mission Road. At the very top, kind of where those trees are, is kind of where Shawnee Mission South is and where 435 would be in a future date. But at that point in time, I can tell you what the time it was because that was when the shopping center was built. Yeah, but that was when the bowling alley, the King Louis bowling alley was being built, and that was about 1961. My dad continued to buy shopping centers and to buy raw land in Johnson County for the balance of his life. By 1990, he owned multiple commercial properties and around 500 acres of undeveloped ground, mostly on 135th Street. Unfortunately, he was diagnosed with cancer in 1994. And he died in 2000, and my mother died in 2005. While all that's interesting information, the anecdotal stories are the really interesting things, and I've got several here that you hopefully will appreciate. I mentioned earlier my dad was an electrician. That's what he did from the early to mid 30s to when he went into the Navy. He worked for a company called the Union Sign Company. And they didn't pay very much, and he was always looking for ways to supplement his income. And back then, and as it is today, neon signs were the very popular thing. And matter of fact, most of the really nice signs were neon signs. And he knew how to fix those and to repair those. But when they had to be replaced, they bring the old ones back, and the tradition was to just throw them in the dumpster and just move on down the road. But he determined very quickly that he could wash out those neon lights, and the element that was the conducting element in neon was mercury. And he knew, he was a smart enough guy to realize that mercury was heavier than water, and so he would wash those out in a tub, and there's a P-trap at the bottom of every a sink, and he would put a container, a closed container underneath of that, and as the mercury went through the water, water would keep going, and the mercury was heavy enough it fell to the bottom, and then he would just fill up this container. And then when it got full, he'd unscrew it and take it over, and he'd sell it back to his boss, to use in new signs. So, I mean, just an idea of my dad was an inventive fellow and when he left to go into the war, his two best friends that worked there got in a fight over who got to take over the mercury business, and that fight was settled by the guy that owned the business, who said, "Neither one of you are getting it. I'm getting it." So that they started doing it for the benefit of the business at that point in time. That subdivision. It's interesting. I worked for Boatman's for 20 years, and that organization, which I had a customer. I had a lot of customers, but I mean a customer up in North Kansas City, and I went to see them one day, and one of the fellows that worked there that was in charge of one of the divisions said, "We've got a connection." And I said, "What is that?" And they said, "I bought a house from your dad at the Missiondale subdivision." I said, "Really?" And so we started talking about it. I said, "I bet you I can tell you a story that your dad's never told you." And I said, "What's that?" He said that, I bought the house, or signed contract for the house, and was getting ready to move in and everything. And my dad was approached by a neighbor that was right across the street, who said, "I'd really rather you not sell that house to a person of the Jewish faith." I think he probably said it in a slightly different way than that, but he said he tried to discourage him from doing that. And my dad said, "Look, Saul's a veteran. I'm a veteran. He has the right to live wherever he wants to live, and he can live in the subdivision." And so he went back to Saul and said, "Saul, if that bothers you, we'll cancel the contract and we'll just move on." But Saul said, "No, I'm good with that." And so he moved in there, and that was that. My dad was. He looked at things very simply. I mean, Saul was a good man. He worked hard. He had a good job. He was a veteran. He deserved to have a good home, just like anyone else. So that was, I think, a reflection early on of my dad's character. My dad really valued education. When we were all in high school, we all were in the Shawnee Mission School District. It really bothered him that he would go to the events at the schools, and they would have ceremonies that would celebrate athletic and musical endeavors, but they never had anything that celebrated really academic endeavors other than graduation. And so he went to Leonard Molotsky, who was the superintendent of the school district at that point in time, and said he wanted to do something to help recognize academic achievement within the school. And he began sponsoring an award ceremony for the winners of the Shawnee Mission Science Fair, and that science fair has evolved to the Research and Development Forum. And 54 years later, in about 3 weeks, I will be handing out the scholarships and the awards for that ceremony for the 54th consecutive year. Another interesting thing that when I was at Boatman's in about 1986, I called my parents one night, very excited that they just made the announcement that Boatman's Bankshares, which was out of St. Louis, had just signed a contract to buy Charter Corp, which was the company that owned First National Bank in Kansas City, and that was going to merge those two companies. I was obviously with the acquiring company, and it was going to get me a great opportunity to have a better job and do more things and have a bigger position within the organization. And my dad paused for a couple of minutes, and he said, "I'm sorry that happened." And I said, "Why would you be sorry? This is a great opportunity for me." And he said, "Well, that's the company that foreclosed on your grandmother and grandfather and took away the only home that his parents ever owned. So that was not a particularly good day for him." So it's all these little poignant moments kind of bring you back to reality. But he was, my dad was part of the greatest generation that Dan Rather used to refer to, and he worked hard. He was very serious about what he was doing, and he worked literally every day of the year. I mean, my dad worked every day of the year except for Christmas, and then Christmas, we would celebrate in the morning, and then he'd always have a project for us to do in the afternoon, like tile a bathroom or something like that. But that's the way he was wired. You know, all three of us, my brother's an architect and a professor in the University of Southern California in California, and my sister still works with our family business in town. So all three of us really had that same kind of work ethic. I graduated from K-State in 1970. I actually went to work for my dad for about 3 weeks, and he put me in a ditch with a shovel. And after about 3 or 4 weeks, I said, Dad, I went to college. I didn't do that to become to work, as a ditch digger. And he said, Bob, you're doing a pretty bad job of that. You're gonna have to work a lot better to, you got to learn that you can do that job before I'm going to move you up to anything else. And I said, I think I might do something else. And he said, Bob, that's just fine. Go right ahead, but you got to work. You don't. He says, when I get up, I was living at home, which that ended very quickly because that wasn't going to work very well. But he said, if I get up in the morning, I get ready to go to work, and you're still in bed, you're going to work with me. And so anyway, I got a job working actually as a welder. That was one of the trades that my dad taught me early on, and I worked as a welder for 3 or 4 weeks or 3 or 4 months that summer. And then ended up getting a job working for the old Baltimore Bank as an assistant in the safe deposit department of the Baltimore Bank. I took a cut in pay from my welder's job to take that job, but I assumed that would lead me to bigger and better things, and it did. I worked for that organization for 20 years. I was very fortunate to have a guy by the name of Ted McCarter, who I just actually saw last week out in Palm Springs. He's retired, but he was my boss for all that period of time, and he was my mentor, and he really helped me learn the banking business. He pulled me out of the vault and helped me become a lending officer. And I rose over that 19 years to be executive vice president of the $2 billion merged organization between First National and Boatman's. In 1989, or at the beginning, latter part of '88 and early '89, we were merging in another company, Centair, and there was a plethora of executives around, and so everybody was kind of scrambling for a job, and so they came to me and said, we want you to give up your banking clients and become the chief administrative officer for the bank, and you'll be in charge of all the personnel and real estate, all the stuff that I was already doing, except that I had to give up my customer base. And I said, I don't really want to do that. I could work for General Motors and do that. I'd rather be a banker. And so they gave me the opportunity to leave at that point in time, and I did. And so I've been thinking about doing this for a long time, and right at that point in time, I began the chartering operation, and at the end of that year, in December of '89, I opened the Bank of Blue Valley. The bank started with $2 million in assets. We've grown it to $630 million in assets over 27 years. I have to tell you, the first 17 years was wonderful. It was the best you could ever been. I mean, the bank grew every year, double digits. Profitability increased every year, and it was a very good period of time. And then and part of that growth was driven by the fact that we were in Johnson County. I mean, this was a suburban community that was growing very fast. We developed a lot of residential real estate. We did a lot of development lending. We did a lot of construction lending. We had a very, probably in retrospect, inordinately high concentration in real estate lending. And when 2008 showed up and the real estate market collapsed, it really cost the bank a significant amount of money. And so we struggled for 2 or 3 years in that period of time, eventually worked our way out of that and got back into profitability and have continued moving forward ever since. So it was, I've told many people that I got my BA at K-State, I got my MBA at UMKC, and I got my PhD in 2008. Because it was a very, very difficult time. And I didn't show you. That's where we got started. That's our little 1,800 square foot, mobile home at in the southwest corner of 119th and Metcalf. And we were in that building for 4 years because of some issues with the construction of our main facility, and we had 22 people working out of that 1,800 square feet when we moved into this building. in 1994. So, yeah, I want to talk a little bit, I'm going to do real quickly, talk about 10 things that I think are important for you to consider. And these are just things for you to think about. I mean, they're not guiding principles in life, but they're things if you're going to start your own business or you're going to go to business for yourself to consider. And then I'm going to finish up with 5 items that I talk about this, more societal elements. So 10 pieces of advice for young entrepreneurs. Start early. If I could change one thing in my history, it would have been starting the Bank of Blue Valley maybe 5 years earlier than that. And I'm in a regulated industry, so I couldn't have started right out of school because I couldn't have gotten the approval to open a bank. But frankly, for what what Michael's doing, what a lot of other people are doing, you don't have to have that regulatory approval. So, getting started earlier rather than later is better. It gives you time to grow, reinvest the proceeds, make some small mistakes, and then learn from those mistakes and improve your product and hone your organization. Have a healthy regard for risk, but don't let it dictate your future. You need to take measured risks. Do your homework and have a plan, but don't bet the farm on a winner-take-all strategy. Have a fallback plan, but don't make that your main plan. It's your fallback plan. You have to have a penchant for forward motion. You have to keep moving forward. If you don't move forward, you fall back. And that was that way 20 years ago. It's worse today. It's much worse today. You've got to keep moving forward. Time is money, and it's important to make continual progress. If you don't screw up at some point in time, have a failure or a misstep, you're not taking enough risk. I was fortunate to be associated with the Chamber of Commerce for a number of years. Every year we took a benchmarking trip to a different city, and 3 years ago, we went to Silicon Valley, and that was just beat into from every entrepreneur out there. I said, you celebrate success, but you celebrate failure too, because failure, you really learn a big lesson, and you learn something that is more of an immutable fact, and you use that to improve your product and move forward. So, mistakes and errors are a consistent element of good companies that have achieved significant success. This is an easy one. Show up, focus, work hard, and accept the potential of change. It's a tried and true statement. I mean, you got to give 110% of effort to try to accomplish anything really good in life, and you've got to try to. But you need to also stay focused on the critical direction of the business. Don't get distracted by all the other junk that surrounds you. You've got to stay focused on where the organization is moving forward, and then if you run into an immovable object or into something that is that causes you to lose momentum, you need to learn how to pivot, or you need to learn how to adjust, or you learn how to modify what you're doing in order to learn from that, what you've done and continue moving forward. I'm a really big believer in metrics. Metrics are something, everything can be measured. Everything can be measured. Determine what's important, measure it, and then tell everybody that works for you that you're measuring that. It's important to have objective measurements and not just rely on subjective data. It also helps to keep people accountable as you move forward in an organization. People. It's really one of the most important elements of any organization. You can do a lot yourself, but you can only do so much. If you're really going to grow a substantive organization that has value going forward, you have to be able to bring good people into your organization. You have to motivate them. You have to be transparent with them. You have to do a lot of things. That, having good, smart people that are committed to your organization will help you be more successful faster. This is another one that you just have to do it. You have to come to terms with your work-life balance. And I deal with this on a daily basis with, people that I work with and people in other industries. Often significant success comes at the cost of your personal life. You have to decide how to prioritize your time and accept the results. If you don't like the results, you rebalance it. But understand that just like my dad, for me, my brother, my sister, most people that have been successful in life have had to, accept some compromises as far as this work-life balance. You know, I'm a big believer of giving back to your community. You know, I think it's very important. I think for your business to be a success, you have to have a good plan and focus on the business. But in the long run, you'll have better employees. You'll have a more motivated workforce if your employees see that you're working toward a bigger goal in life. And I think in the long run, actually it doesn't happen in the short run, I can tell you that, but in the long run, people recognize that. They see that you are trying to do things to help your community and in your industry. So keep that as part of it. Gotta have some fun every once in a while. You know, I can't tell you how many times I've been in a difficult negotiation and things have just kind of hit a wall. And as my employees, several of which are here today, will attest, I have a really poor sense of humor. But you know, we were actually talking the other day about we were in an employee meeting about the word free. And I said, you know, and actually Bonnie McConaughey here, they said it's our customer's favorite four-letter word. And for some reason, my twisted mind went to, there's a great country western song, and I don't remember the name of the song, but the main line is, my wife used every four-letter word except love. So I thought it was a great song, actually, but I can't sing it, and I won't sing it. But and the most important is obviously the one that everybody tells you. You don't ever give up. The reality is you're not done until you're done. I mean, until you say you're done. As long as you're, you know, vertical and you're moving forward, you're still alive. You're still doing business. So you don't give up. You keep moving forward. And then you keep adjusting. You try to find the right combination, and eventually you'll find that exact right combination. As I said, when you become successful, after you make all that money and you start to look at think about the overall community, think about these 5 things. And these are my 5 elements of life that I think are important. Be a lifelong learner and cherish education. You know, education, from my perspective, that's part of the reason why we invested the money at UMKC and that we've invested at KU and K-State and Johnson County Community College. It's the most important thing, frankly, for the future of all of us. You know, this is the 21st century is we're in a knowledge-based economy. You know, the better people we've got, the better chance we've got of being successful in the long run. You know, creativity, I think, is also important. I mean, creativity is the essence of a business. I mean, you've got to be creative to come up with a new product and come up with something new. But I have been actively involved in supporting the Arts KC movement in Kansas City for the last 10 years. And you know, the arts business is a real industry in Kansas City. It directly and indirectly employs probably 20,000 people. Over 400,000 for $1 million of economic impact. Over 5 million people attended, you know, events in the last couple of years, 25% of which were from outside of Kansas City. So it is very important. It has tremendous educational benefits, particularly in the K-12 environment. You know, experience in the arts leads to better SAT scores, academic achievement, graduation. So the arts is a really, and aside from creating a better quality of life, it's an important element that we ought to continue to have. You know, sharing your talents and resources. You know that this became really important to me when I was the head of the chamber for a year, and we were right in the midst of this fight between Johnson County and Kansas City, Missouri, which is a ridiculous fight where no one wins actually. But you know, I said at that time, you know, we complement each other. You know, Johnson County, which is a great living environment, would be nothing without an international airport, the Nelson Art Gallery, and the Kauffman, you know, Center, and UMKC. But Kansas City, Missouri, without a great, you know, educational system in the K-12 environment that they got in Johnson County and a great suburban environment, would also be diminished. So together, you know, it's a great combination, and they need to work together. If you got your paper from a couple days ago, go back and read the article about KC Rising. There's a couple articles. There's actually a very pointed editorial, which I thought was interesting, about KC Rising. It's a new project that I'm involved with, and the Civic Council is heading up along with Mark and a couple other organizations, the Chamber, to help try to create cooperative efforts in Kansas City and create a better economic environment for Kansas City. Philanthropy is also a very important thing. I think it's incredibly important that we give back to our community. It's interesting. The Midwest is a particularly great place for philanthropy and volunteerism. You realize it's the 28th largest city in the United States, and yet this is the seventh greatest city from a volunteer perspective. 35% of the people in Kansas City volunteer at some point in time. So time, talent, and treasure. So that plus the fact that when you work together on a cooperative project, it brings the community together. It makes it a better place. It improves the quality of life. So philanthropy is something that I believe very strongly in, and I think everybody should participate in one form or another. And then believe in yourself and have faith in a better tomorrow. And I divide faith and belief into two different categories. Personally, faith is the religious side of that. There's obviously lots of varieties of faiths out there. And everybody has to make their own decision up with regard to that. It's very important to me. But, you have to decide that for yourself. The belief side is really, I think, you've got to come in with a positive attitude. You've got to look at it that you believe in your fellow man, because there's just less and less tangible things out there in the world today. And if you can't trust the guy next to you or work to try to create a better environment with people around you, it's going to be, none of us will be successful in the long run. So, come on, how do I get that back? I was going to back that up into, I've got them. Anyway, that is the total of my comments, and there you go, thanks. Happy to answer any questions that you might have. I was going to say early on, you guys are here every day and you see this Reneer Institute. Sometimes you want to know what it is, and that's my goal today was to kind of give you a reflection, really as much on my dad, because it's a lot of what he has done is what we have reinvested here. So.
All right, we've got one over here. Get your hands up if you have a question, and I'll get to you next.
What are some of the things you learned from your mom?
Hey, actually, my mother was, a person that, believed in sticking to it and, being, actively involved. She was the one that was, including my dad, pushing us on the educational front. She was a more metered person than my dad. My dad was, a very active individual, so she taught me how to be a little bit calmer and how to stop for a minute. My dad was an action-first sort of guy, and there's nothing wrong with that. I think that's very positive. But, we talk at the bank about customers that are ready, fire, aim, and my dad was more of a ready, fire, aim sort of guy, and my mother was one that would tend to be more contemplative of things and think about them a little bit longer. They were a great combination because he was very action-oriented. She was very cerebral in the way she approached things. So it was a good combination.
Colin, over here, you're right.
Yeah.
I just want to say thank you for coming today and talking to us, first of all. You had talked about how you had a mentor, like at work. How would you say to kind of go about and develop that relationship of having a mentor like at work who can really get you to, grow yourself?
In my case, I was very fortunate because I had a mentor that I worked for, and he was a good man, and it was in his best interest to have me do as much as I could, and but he helped me continue to move forward. If you don't have that environment, which is not the case in many cases, say you go to work for an organization and you just don't have the exact right person, you've got to find that person, and that person can be anywhere from a religious person to someone at the university. There's a great mentorship program at UMKC. Find someone within that program and talk to them. I really think that being around successful people is incredibly valuable to you in the long run, because you learn. I talked about Henry Block, and I don't know, Henry and I are not good friends or anything like that. I mean, I know him, and we end up going to a lot of things together because he's a very involved person, as am I. But I will tell you, listening to him, I can I can remember I was on the board of the Nelson Art Gallery for a period of time, and he was on the board there, and during 08 and 09, he stopped me one time after a board meeting, and he read all things in the paper. There's lots of things out there, and he said, "Bob, I appreciate what you're doing for the Nelson, but pay attention to your business. Your business is what allows you to do all these other things. So pay attention to your business, and if you're not around here for a while, don't worry about it. Everything will be fine." But he just one of those guys that was just so smart and just and says things in such a nice, sometimes gentle, sometimes not so gentle way. But he's a good man. So.
Got another one over here.
Well, thanks for being here. Most entrepreneurs have like a breaking point when everything is going wrong and nothing's working, not favorable. How did you overcome this moment?
Well, I have experienced that. During the 08 and 09 and 10, there were some very difficult moments for me in the bank, and a lot of the times you just have to sort of. You close the door, you lock the door at the end of the day, and you just sort of stand back and sort of kind of reflect on what's going on, and you can't ever lose that optimism. I can't tell you what it is. I'm sure there's a physiological term for it, but my dad had it. My dad went through some very difficult times right when he was starting the shopping center, because there was a very big investment, and he didn't have a lot of capital, and there were points in time when people said you need to just give it back to the bank and just forget about it, because you go back to building houses. But you have to have that desire to be successful, and that belief that there's a way, there is an avenue, there is a formula that will allow you to get through all of that, and part of it is physiological. You have to just say, I'm going to do it, and keep working on it until you find something that happens. And I also found in my experience at the bank that when we were going through some of our early problems there, I made the decision, which was really a smart decision. I mean, one of the smarter things I did in that period of time was, we're it's a regulated industry. The FDIC, the Fed, and the OCC, there is it's a highly regulated industry, and their style was to come every 12 months and talk to you and examine the bank. After they recognized, we recognized that we had issues to do. I went back to the guy after an exam and I said, I'm going to come to you every month with a report. How we did, we made money, lost money, what was good, what was bad, and he said, you can if you want to, but he said, you don't have to. He says, we'll come back and see you in another 12 months, or another 11 months. And I said, no, I want that metric. And so I started doing that. He didn't realize, I don't know that I realized at the time, I was building credibility with him. Because every month I come in and I tell him what happened good and what happened bad. I probably had 28, 29, 30, 31, 32 of those meetings with these guys. And finally, there was a point in time when he said, Bob, don't come back. We don't have time to talk to you anymore, because they said, we're not worried about you. I mean, you're doing fine. You're continuing to improve. But it was, doing that was just one little small thing, but it really helped us. So.
Over here. Bob, it sounds like,
Yeah.
It sounds like with the right attitude, one of the things you're saying is that bad things can actually turn out to be good things. I mean, it sounds like, the way things worked out for you both maybe wasn't so hot, but that was actually a catalyst perhaps that made you decide it was time to do your own thing. And telling these other stories also sounds like the problems, once you dealt with them, it was actually good to happen because it allowed you to move forward. Is that okay?
No, I mean, what you said about my experience, my final days at Boatman's was absolutely true, because I had a very comfortable job. I was a senior executive. I had a very good job, and actually the job that they offered me was a very good job. It was an administrative job, and it wasn't exactly what I wanted to do. I can still remember my wife's reaction when I told her that I'd quit my job. She was not happy. This is, by the way, this is my wife down here, right there in the first row. But but you know, it did give me the motivation to say, I know I'm going to do this. I had tried a year before to get something started, and I had not been successful, and I sort of had that on the back burner, and I was working on it, but it wasn't front burner to me because I had lots of work to do at Boatman's at the time, and so but you know, given that opportunity, I sort of sat back and I thought to myself, you know, this is the time. I mean, if there's a time to do that, it's now. And I did it, moved forward, and like you said, that what could have been a very negative thing turned out to be an incredibly positive thing for me.
Way back here.
Thanks for coming again. Most of these people around here are going to need money at some point in their startups, and cash is very hard to get these days. Do you have any advice for them as to what they'll need to do it? Should they go to banks? Should they go to the venture capital people? What should they, do you have any advice at all on how to get money for a venture? A new
Yeah.
venture?
You got to go wherever you can to get the money. I mean, frankly, you know, always getting venture capital money is expensive. You know, when you talk about not expensive from an interest perspective, but expensive from an ownership perspective. And you know, my personal view is that you do that that's the last thing you do, because you frankly want to hold on to that equity as long as you possibly can and leverage to a reasonable extent the assets that you've got. I will tell you that it is a more difficult environment today. Actually, I think, you know, again, I have empathy and encouragement for all of you in your efforts going forward, because frankly, when I was starting the bank in the 90s, even though, frankly, if you remember, there was a recession in 1989, there was another one in 94, and then there was another one in 99. But, you know, there was just more optimism. There was less federal regulation. There was just general sense of optimism, and it was easier to move things forward. I think it's more difficult today. I think much in a way, and I can't, I don't know that I'm going to express this as well as I'd like to, but just like the Great Depression had a significant impression on guys like my dad. My dad worried about going broke to the day he died. I mean, he was worried about that, and he had millions of dollars in the bank. But it affected his psyche, and I think that the Great Recession has really set back our country from a standpoint of that, you know, the lending environment, and you know, again, my organization, I've got 2 or 3 lending officers right over here. So if you're looking for a loan, come down and talk to one of them, and they'll talk to you. But you know, we are looking for good loans, but I will tell you, we are very careful these days. And you know, if you listen, I don't remember if they have the there's a great story, and this is I'll end with this, but and I know it's on a video clip someplace, and I don't think it's out there. I think it's someplace else, but you might hear one at one point in time. But it's one of my old customers. There was a lady that actually, she's just 5 blocks away from here, 6 blocks away from here. She's at 5028 Main. And it's a company called the Modern Salon too. Her name is Ann Tu. She's actually originally Chinese. Her family moved to Vietnam, and she ended up her parents died, and she became a refugee from Vietnam and came to the United States as a small child, and actually was settled out in the center school districts out kind of mid South Kansas City, Missouri, and she went to trade school and ended up becoming a stylist. And she did very, very well working for someone, but she had an entrepreneurial spirit beyond anything I think I've ever seen. I mean, I was just amazed at her, but she'd done very well. She'd amassed, she bought her own house, but 2 very, very, very nice cars. She had money in the bank. She had investments, but she really wanted her own business. She was introduced to me by a realtor that I knew who was trying to sell her a piece of property, actually. And so she came to me, and I looked at her and I thought, you know, you've got the assets, you've got the know-how of how to do the business, but you have absolutely zero business acumen. I just, that's a critical element to this. And so I figured the only way to really to kind of bring this to a head is I'm just going to have to make it sound as bad as I possibly could. And I said, look, if we were going to do this, and I'm not saying we can, if we're going to do it, you have to pledge your house, both your cars, all of your clothes, all your investments, and all your cash. And if you're not successful, you're going to lose everything. I said that. You're going to lose everything, and within 2 seconds, she says, all right, I'm ready to go. Where do we sign? And you know that, I always remember that. I mean, this is a remarkable woman. I mean, she had such ultimate confidence in her ability to get this done. And frankly, I learned over the subsequent 2 or 3 years as we worked with them, and she knew nothing about business. She knew a lot about about hairstyling, but nothing about business. But she was successful, and she paid off that building, and then she expanded the building. And she's a lovely woman that is a successful businessman or business person. And I'm very proud to have had that association with her. So thank you all. Anything else?
Thank you so much for joining us today. Before you leave today, Dr. Hornsby has one more announcement for us.
Thanks, Ben. First of all, I want to thank all the Block School faculty for coming and supporting our programs. I want to thank our Reneer Institute team for all their hard work in putting these on. A lot of work in the planning stages and our affiliate organizations within the Block School that also support this. And we thank our finance students for coming today as well. There's one special group, though, that I want to call out today, and I'd like all our mentors to stand up. All the folks that act as mentors in our eScholar and other programs. We have over 100 mentors that are affiliated with our program in one way or another, but one of the key ways is working with our venture startups in the early stages. And as you know, Brian Boots, our Assistant Director and Coordinator of our eScholar program, would love to talk to any of you students that have an idea and would like to get involved in that program. We have some participants in the eScholar program here too. Well, last year we embarked on a strategic plan for venture creation called our Venture Creation Task Force. And we created that task force out of a small group of mentors and asked them to take a hard look at our programs in terms of eScholars and the mentor program. And one of the things that came up in the focus groups we conducted was we need to bring back our Mentor of the Year award, or Mentors of the Year award. And so that struck us as a leadership team that we really should be recognizing our mentors and more. They're the foundation of what we do. It's the glue that holds all our venture creation programs together. So doing that, then we decided, and I tasked Evan Stewart, who is a member of the task force, to work with that task force and bring other mentors in and create the logistics and the operations for giving out the award. And he's now working on that. But our leadership team at the Reneer Institute thought about what should we do with this award. And we could think of no better person than Bob Regnier and the Reneer family to name our Mentor Award. You can see what he does with his bank and his entrepreneurial story, his family's entrepreneurial story, and the fact that they are one of the biggest investors in the Reneer Institute's success in the first place. So Dave, you want to come up here too? So Bob, I'm going to read the plaque and what it says in honor of you and your family and our mentors. With a grateful heart, the staff, faculty, mentors, and students of the Reneer Institute and the Block School of Management honor Bob Regnier and his family for their unwavering and generous support. Let it be known that the newly created Mentor of the Year Award will henceforth be called the Regnier Mentor of the Year. This honor and award reflects the Regnier family contribution and the importance of our mentors to the Institute's success. Dated March 2nd, 2016. So we will be giving out our Mentors of the Year awards at either at the VCC competition or at our eScholar graduation. So thank you very much, Bob.
Thank you.